Now the beautiful thing about Feezles, and I've got to say that I'm so grateful to them allowing me to walk around here and film today. I will, as I've said, put a link to their website in the description. We're going to look at, so we're in a corner of the yard where there's a lot of older stuff, so we're going to take a walk around some of this. This is a Monte Carlo. This one is an early 80s car. They built this particular generation through to about 1988 or so. This is an earlier car before the flush headlights. There's another earlier one as well, but this is the SS model, which has got the different fairing and front spoiler on the front. We've then got a very early 90s DeVille. These were based on the B body. This particular generation I think is beautiful. It's just this is one of the last of the traditional Cadillacs. Very, very big engine, floaty ride, although I think by the time, I'm not sure which engine went into this one. It was likely the 5-litre V8 I think that was in this one. The same as the early final generation Roadmaster, but just a stunningly beautiful car. This didn't share anything apart from mechanicals with the Roadmaster, completely different body, but yeah, just a lovely car. Very floaty ride, very comfortable. You have to drive something like this on an American interstate to really appreciate what these cars are all about. Okay, and then next to it, down here, there's a 99 Eldorado. This is going to have the 4.6 North Star in it, sadly. And the later Eldorados like this is the final generation Eldorado, was one of my favorite Cadillacs ever. I just love the styling. They rounded these off towards the late 90s. Same with the DeVille as well, and they were just really attractive cars for my money. Over there is a beautiful old, that is probably like a 1960 Cadillac maybe, I'm thinking. Over there, the big bullet bumpers. Over here is a Thunderbird from early 1960s, I'm thinking, where my knowledge base gets a bit rough. Now, I brought you down here because I want to show you this. I want this, I want to buy it, they won't sell it to me. This is super rare. This is a 1991 Sterling. This is the American version of the Rover 800, of course. Sterling was a total flop in the United States. It ran from 1986 to 1991. They suffered, of course, through very poor build quality, which is why it failed. The later R17 cars, which were much better, much heavily revised, that came out in Europe, were not sold here. In the States, only the larger Honda 2.5 and later 2.7 engines were offered, as opposed to the Rover 4s. This one is an SL, which is the equivalent of the top spec Rover Sterling. Sterling was used here as a brand name to try and differentiate it from the earlier Rover sales failures with the P6 and the SD1. This is one of the very last ones. It's a 91, and this is an 827, so it's a post 1988 car. It's got the 2.7, yeah, super rare, and I would absolutely love this thing. We haven't got time to go through all of these, but we're going to I'm just going to sort of introduce you to them briefly. Oldsmobile Delta 88, Ford Thunderbird, perhaps, not too sure. I've no idea what that is. absolutely no idea.
Look at the big fins on the back.
Yeah, I know. I see the fins on the back.
I'm trying to think of.
Is it a Buick?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Hard to
I
tell.
have to look that one up, guys. This is a Buick Regal.
SpongeBob car in the back.
And there is another one by the looks of it in the back there. This is an El Camino. Very the other one, very sad looking. That looks like a Chevy C1500, I think. Or is it a Ford? I don't know. It's getting to the point in time where the American stuff is not so good on. The last of the V-body Caprices. That one's a 94, so it'll first year for the LT1 engine. Ford F100. Very famous B-body Camaro, or F-body rather, Camaro. This is a Lincoln Continental. Chrysler LeBaron K car. Jaguar XJS convertible, of course, that's a pre-1990 car. Chrysler Fifth Avenue. This shape was hugely popular in the late 80s, mid to late 80s. Beautiful to ride in, and they were absolutely sumptuous. Again, no idea, but I think that is a Chevrolet.
Yep.
Dodge, something or other. Looks like a Challenger, maybe. That is a Caprice. And we're back to the Thunderbird again. Whole row of Mercedes slash Dodge slash Freightliner. There's a Freightliner version there. Sprinter vans. They were sold as Dodge and Freightliners in the US first, and then latterly Mercedes sold their own version. Mitsubishi Endeavour, the short-lived large SUV, which I actually really like. Pretty forlorn looking Chrysler 300. They built these, of course, for 16 years or so. Essentially a version of the Mercedes W202 platform, I think. I'll have to put the correct one on the screen. But this was developed when they were all tied in with Mercedes. Beautiful ride. Sadly, build quality wasn't that great in these 2000 to 2010 cars. Well, I think they came out in like 2006. But these early cars, you can see how it's rotted away right there. And but yeah, I always like the shape of them. You could have your own money laundering ring with one of these. Very sad to see this here. For me, this is one of the few really interesting Hondas that was produced. Of course, the first generation Insight. This had a 1 litre engine. I think it might be 3-cylinder. Not too sure. I'll have to check on that. But it was a hybrid, and with the very aerodynamic shape that the car had, it was good for 80 mpg. And the ones that you see for sale now have often racked up enormous mileages as well. Amazing car. So this is a 2011 Nissan Versa. It was sold as the Taido many markets. It wasn't sold in the UK, but it was sold in Ireland as the Taido. And you do see a number that have been imported personally into Britain. And it was available as a hatchback and as a sedan. This is a hatchback that's had a huge knock in the rear. Now, if that window line has echoes of Renault in it, the Renault Megane, and that's because it basically sits on a Renault platform. It's the same platform as the Clio. I'll bring up the generation of Clio that it's based on, but this is all part of that Nissan Renault sort of alliance back in the day. This is a super rare Mercedes C107. What Mercedes did was that they took the R107, which was a shorter platform, extended it and turned it into a coupe. It was the only version of the Mercedes S-Class where the coupe was based off of a slightly different body to the sedan. This particular one is a very early car. It's a 1973. It had the tiny door mirrors. You can see how small those door mirrors were. They were much enlarged after 1975. But prior to 1974, when the SL notably and the SLC notably had the big impact bumpers, the early 1973 cars, because the SL came out in 72 and this followed it the following year. The 73 cars had the overriders on, but they had otherwise the much slimmer European looking bumpers, and then the American versions had turn signals underneath the bumper, but extremely rare. This is an R170. I of course had a very early 98 170. They came out in 96, but for the US they were launched in 98. This is a post 2000 car where they made slight revisions. The bumpers were revised, so it's got the round or the ovoid fog lights, and also the turn signals in the mirrors by this point. Previously the turn signals were on the front wings. The interesting thing about the SLK, which this is, was it was basically based off a concept car, and it was a homage to the original 50s SL. In fact, it used exactly the same wheelbase as that 1950s SL, and that's also why it's got the humps on the bonnet here as well, to sort of replicate that look. I really miss mine. I wish mine was a manual, it was an automatic, but mine was the supercharged one. It doesn't feel that powerful until you really start putting your foot down. But when you're actually inside, you've got a very low slung driving position, and those humps on the bonnet really stand out. Lovely cars. I regret getting rid of mine. Now, when Hyundai brought out the Genesis brand, it was simply known as Hyundai Genesis, and it was a North America only product. There was a sedan and a coupe, which I think both had the same engines. The top engine was a 3.8 V6, which in the lighter coupe was a particularly desirable package. The coupe itself also had a 2-litre turbo, and so it had a lower price point to start with, and it was generally less luxurious than the sedan. So it's essentially two product lines under the same Genesis moniker. This one is the coupe, and actually doesn't look to be in bad condition other than the bumpers, to be honest, although that side's a little bit more worked over. But very desirable car. I've always fancied one, having one in the collection. I really like the side window profiles, how that dips down, a little bit like the BMW i3, but these are very cool. So this is the sedan. So as with the coupe, came out in 2009, ran to about 2015-16 or so, and that's when Hyundai made Genesis a brand in its own right. The sedan, unlike the coupe, had a Genesis sort of winged logo on the front, but then a Hyundai badge at the back. This is a 2012. These are supremely beautifully riding and handling cars. They launched Hyundai into the big league, and there was a more expensive model than this even, called the Equus, which was larger still, again with rear drivers. These were, and they're just they were a lot of car for the money. Let's see if we can take a look inside it. Yeah, it's pretty much worked over, unfortunately, but if you can find a nice one and they have supreme reliability, then they make for a really plush, cheap ride these days. So I think we'll end our tour today with this. It's a very appropriately completely knackered Nissan 370Z. This has been in some phenomenal rollover by the looks of it, and this will likely just go into the crusher, I would imagine. I can't see it sitting here for long. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed a bit of a wander around looking at some more of the interesting cars here that's at Feezle's Breakers Yard here in Enon Valley, Pennsylvania. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Darren, and this is Auto Atlantica.